What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. You guys, Derek and Cody with you as always. And Cody, I was sitting around, I was thinking about this roster a little bit, and I'm thinking to myself, we've been talking a lot about Adonai Mitchell recently, and we've been talking a lot about the matchup with him and, with Alec Pierce and things like that. And we've been talking about Michael Pittman's contract and things like that. But, I think that there is another weapon on here that I think keeps getting easily overlooked on this roster. And I think it's another weapon that could be the secret weapon for the Indianapolis Colts season this next year, and what could potentially take them from a really good offense to a potentially elite offense. And I think that weapon's name is Josh Downs. I think that there is a lot of untapped potential within Josh Downs, and I think you saw it in his rookie year, where last year had 68 receptions, which was top 50 of all wide receivers in the NFL last year. Was also top 50 in yards, and I think has a lot of great things to be desired here if you're looking at what could potentially be for Josh Downs if he gets his quarterback back in Anthony Richardson, who we obviously know he has great chemistry with. We've already saw it through one off season. I can only imagine with another off season what Josh Downs could do. I think he is the secret weapon to the offense being able to be a potentially elite offense in 2024. Please tell me, do you agree, or am I being too crazy here?
No, I don't think you're being crazy at all. We haven't talked about Josh Downs probably nearly as much as we need to, because, this is a dude that just casually broke the Colts receiving record when it came to receptions last year, right? And, it's not like he had this, obviously Gardner Minshew, we know he had some good moments. He had some not great moments. But Josh Downs still got opportunities and made the most of them. Regardless if his quarterback's freaking Tom Brady or if it's Gardner Minshew, like the fact that, Josh Downs did what he did, I think is so impressive as a rookie coming in and catching 68 balls for nearly 800 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. That is darn impressive, especially considering, Derek, the fact that Alec Pierce, who is the number 2 wide receiver, he played over 1,000 snaps. So it's not like Josh Downs was, getting the second most snaps on this team. No, he was not for the Colts, but he was still playing so well for Indianapolis last year. And, 98 targets and caught 68 of those and did some really, really good things for the Colts last year. And really excited to see kind of what he did, in less than 800 snaps last year. So, he dealt with a little bit of an injury, but still was very, very consistent for Indianapolis when they actually targeted him and made an impact and made plays when he had to make them. We all remember that New England game when Josh Downs lays out for that pass and Gardner Minshew scrambling for his life, but Josh Downs makes that play. Like, that just shows you this kid, he's got something different in him, man. And like you said, just getting an actual quarterback that will get him the football and won't just get him the football 3 to 5 yards down the field, but it'll actually give him more opportunities vertically. I'm intrigued about that. I'm really looking forward to that for Josh Downs. And we obviously talked about the chemistry with Anthony Richardson. It's clearly there. And we saw, even in that Tennessee game before Richardson went down, you remember that one pass he had to Josh Downs down the field where it was a massive gain. And so I feel like that chemistry is there with those two, and I'm just intrigued to see him. We've talked about Pittman, and we've talked about Pierce, we've talked about Mitchell, but Josh Downs, I think, is so important to what this offense does. When's the last time, Derek, the Indianapolis Colts have had a true slot receiver like Josh Downs? It's been a while. T.Y. Hilton could play that a little bit, but he was a lot, he was kind of the only guy for a while. So it's been a while since the Colts have had a guy that they can truly just line up in the slot and feel like they can pretty much win about any matchup they have. Going in here to year number 2 for Josh Downs. And so that is so valuable to what the Colts offense wants to do. And I don't think it's crazy to say he is definitely an important piece to this offense. I mean, he's so important. He may not have the craziest plays. It may not always be like, what we've seen, even with Adonai Mitchell. Like, it may not always be that, oh my gosh, he just went and did that. But Josh Downs was so consistent for the Colts when he actually got targets. And so I'm very intrigued now with an actual full offseason, working with Richardson, being in Shane Steichen's system. Like, what more can we tap into with Josh Downs? Like, that, if that was his, his floor, what's his ceiling? I am very intrigued about that.
And if you ever wonder just how important a slot wide receiver is for a team, just go ask the Raiders in 2021 what Hunter Renfrow did for them and how important he was to their ability to win games and stay relative and be able to try to push for a playoff push. That's how important he was. And you're right. I mean, the usage of Josh Downs, I think, will only continue to get better. Remember, this guy had 98 targets, which is actually insane because he only had 68 catches. Now, mind you, he did have a few drops last year. It was certainly not a friendly year for Josh Downs in that regard. He did have the most drops of any wide receiver on the team last year. But again, a lot of the passes that he was getting also were not great passes either. Like you said, that one catch that he made against New England, I mean, that would have been that's a 50-50 one right there. Josh Downs just made an unbelievable play. But Cody, I mean, it's crazy what could have been an even better season for Josh Downs had the offense of the Indianapolis Colts completely dissipated in the passing category. In the first 9 games of the season, 6 of those games, Josh Downs was targeted at least 6 times in those games. I mean, his best game, the 2 best games that he had, was the game against Tennessee where he caught all 6 targets for 97 yards. And in that Cleveland game, like you said before, 5 receptions for 125 yards and a touchdown. I mean, heck, even had another game, a couple other good games in there as well. Even had 12 targets against Baltimore. So this guy was utilized a lot early in the year. But then when that offense started trailing back a little bit in the back half of the game, so the final 8, only twice did Josh Downs get targeted 6 times or more. That was when it became the Michael Pittman show. It was Michael Pittman or no one else when it came to the offense. So, Josh Downs was not as utilized in the system. I mean, I think the crazy part is the Tampa Bay one. He was targeted 13 times, Cody, in that game, only 5 receptions. Think of how wild that is, that on 40% of your targets, you only caught the ball. And again, there might be a drop here and there in that game, but there was a lot of bad offense from the Indianapolis Colts on the back end of the season because Gardner Minshew was getting figured out and the Colts just couldn't quite put together an offensive attack like they probably can now with Anthony Richardson. I mean, again, Anthony Richardson didn't contribute to a lot of the performances that Josh Downs did have. But remember, in that Tennessee game, there was a couple plays early on where Josh Downs really came in handy for Anthony Richardson. The 2 catches, we remember the 2 catches early in the game against the Rams for Josh Downs, had a couple really good ones in there. I just think if we can get some consistency within the offense to continue to get this guy in the loop I truly don't think there's any real legitimate corner out there that can shut down Josh Downs in a particular situation where it's short yardage and you need to get those yards to get open. Josh Downs is always open, man. And with Anthony Richardson, I think they're going to continue to build upon that. And I think that it would not shock me at all if next year Josh Downs is aiming for, that 80 plus reception mark next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm hoping that the efficiency goes up for Josh Downs because you talk, just with the inability or the unwillingness, whatever you want to call it, to throw the ball down the field. Like, how much of that was, the quarterback versus Josh Downs, right? Because I was kind of looking at just like the average depth of target, when he was targeted. And there are some games where it's like, okay, yeah, like he's actually, a couple games where he made some big plays. But Derek, there was a lot of times when it was not good. Like it was just not good the way the Colts were targeting him, when they were throwing the ball to him. So yeah, he might have had nearly 100 targets, but how many of those were 2, 3, 4 yards down the field, and as opposed to, having the 8, 9, 10, down the field. Like that's kind of one thing that I just like was looking at and just like, wow, like that's kind of crazy that there are multiple games, Derek, where Josh Downs, barely had 4 yards, per target, which is kind of crazy. So there are multiple games if you go back and look where you're like, wow, like they just didn't throw the ball down the field to him. Like they maybe had targeted him, but like how many of those were like very small, minimal things, and Josh Downs just didn't get opportunities, down the field at least at all, or even like to the middle of the field. It was very short for Josh Downs in a decent amount of those games. So I'm hoping that kind of goes up a little bit just by nature of having Anthony Richardson, that like, yeah, okay, Josh Downs will still have a few of those that you throw it to him 1-2 yards down the field and he goes and makes a play. But I'm hoping some of those average depth of receptions go up just by the nature of having a quarterback that is willing to throw the ball down the field a little bit more. I'm hoping that just helps out. And also just what your playbook can now have with an Anthony Richardson versus Gardner Minshew, I think is also a big thing. And the things you're going to ask your wide receivers to do are probably different too in certain ways. And so I'm hoping that's one of those things that just improves for Josh Downs.
Absolutely, man. I'll tell you what, I cannot wait to see what Josh Downs does in 2024. He said that the Colts were not going to regret bringing him in, and he certainly had one of the best rookie seasons that a Indianapolis Colt wide receiver has ever had. So only to continue to build up from here. You and I spoke with him last offseason. Really hope that we get to do that again here next training camp. But let me know what you think, guys. Is Josh Downs the secret weapon for the Indianapolis Colts to really take that next step offensively? But that'll do it for this one. Thank you guys again so much for all the support. And as always, go Colts.